You are now entering the mind of one of rock's greatest musicians, a former singer of Styx. The exclusive podcast, Come Sail Away, with Dennis DeYoung.
Come sail away, come sail away, come sail away with me.
Hey kids, it's Dennis DeYoung. And my last couple podcasts, I made the bold statement that, I like all different kinds of music. I can usually find something I like in every genre of music created. And the first thing I talked about was death metal, by putting my finger on a page in, musical styles and just starting rapping about this stuff. And remember, these are just my opinions. Just like yours, they're no better than the next guys. They just happen to gave me a microphone to be on this radio station with you. So, but I immediately began to contradict myself after I realized there wasn't really much in death metal I liked. It was the first thing I talked about. I could appreciate the skill set that some of the musicians have, but as far as I've said before, songwriting, singing, things I like the most, there wasn't anything there for me. And then I went into punk music because I guess I'm looking for trouble, from every category. And then I said, where did punk music start? I said, well, I thought it started like in Portland, Oregon with the Kingsmen. Just a little refresher course about what we've been talking about with Louie Louie. Garage bands in the United States that started this stuff. So then I started to look around and think, well, okay, punk music. I said I could find something I liked in every music, and I started out by contradicting myself by saying, oh God, there's nothing here that I really like in death metal. But punk music, I can actually say, I like The Clash, although they're the least punky of all the punk bands in my mind. They're more like just like your basic rock and roll band that were part of that punk movement. And so I'm going to start off by being positive by saying, yeah, I like a couple of Clash songs. I really do. I like Train in Vain. I like Should I Stay or Should I Go? And I think their best song, and the people on YouTube concur, is Rockin' the Casbah, which is really, it's not a punk song, it's a pop song. It came later in their career, and it was catchy, and it was performed like a pop record. It didn't have all that angst and that fiery stuff that most early punk bands had, where, the thing about punk music is a lot of them took the same old three chords that have been bashed around for 30 years and just played them too fast, too loud, and too distorted, and not that well. And as far as the singers go in punk music, once again, I told you, I like singers. I can't find one that really is a singer, not in the traditional sense, which I guess is what their whole point was in the first place. We are rebelling against the man. We are rebelling against the man. We're going to take all these old fart musicians and we're going to turn this thing upside down. Well, they did turn it upside down like a garbage can in some ways. They did do that. But really, fundamentally, the punk movement, which was the most popular in Great Britain, was a social movement because of the years of, the culture in the society in Great Britain had a class system, and people had a very difficult time breaking out of that class system for many years. And a way they equalized it was to be essentially a socialist government for so many years. And in the middle 70s, the young people who had really very little opportunities for jobs, and England was kind of, it was teetering on the brink there. The young people rebelled, and it makes sense. But it wasn't really a musical movement to me. It is more than anything a societal a movement about the way the social issues were being treated at the time. Now this guy John Holmstrom, who was the founding editor of Punk magazine, he says things like, but this is the best thing I like about this whole thing, is that he said it was a DIY attitude, do it yourself. And saying things like, well, when they started calling Billy Joel and Simon Garfunkel rock, they knew there was time for a change. I just don't know any people in those days who called Billy Joel and Simon Garfunkel rock. It's disingenuous. Billy Joel and Simon Garfunkel were wonderful pop stars, particularly Billy Joel, one of the best songwriters, and Simon and Garfunkel, great songwriters, but they were more of a folk act and a pop act than rock and roll. Nobody believed that. So it's ridiculous to even have that statement. But he goes on to say things about that punk rock was rock and roll by people who didn't have very many skills as musicians, but still felt the need to express themselves through music. And I say, well, good for you. What does that mean? I feel the need to express myself as a baseball player, so I may not be able to hit a pitch or know how many balls and strikes there in at bat, but I'm going to go out here and run around because I feel the need to express myself. It's just insanity to me. And so, look, to be a rock musician, you do not have to be a virtuoso in like Heifetz, Horowitz in classical music, or the great jazz pianists like Oscar Peterson, or great singers like Frank Sinatra, Tony Bennett in pop music. No, you don't. But you have to have a basic level of skills. And what Punker said is, no, that's not important. And I beg to differ with you. If you're making music, you have to have an entry-level ability to play together and play in tune. You don't have to be perfectly in tune or perfectly in time. Still, you got to be somewhat. And they seem to be anti-music to me in some ways. Just to, look, when guys get on a stage and they play music really fast and really loud and they jump around, and this is the raison d'etre, okay, fine. If you find an audience, good for you. It's not for me. Not really. Because look, at 1977, The Clash declared, no Elvis, Beatles, or the Rolling Stone in 1977. How did that work out? Not good. Elvis, the Beatles, and Rolling Stones, my God, they're as popular now as ever, for goodness sakes. And the punk music, where is that? I mean, occasionally you're going to hear a Clash song, which I said before really is it's the best of the bunch. You'll hear the Ramones once in a while with that Blitzkrieg bop, I think, hey ho, let's go. But even when I listen to the Ramones, I think to myself, especially the records they recorded, they don't have that energy, that thrashing, wild attitude in. They seem very controlled, whoever made those records. And so I think to myself, okay, you made it, you had a little success, good for you. But punk music as a whole, what has it done? And here's my biggest complaint. The people who invented this stuff, the people who invented rock and roll, all right? Here's what you do. You just go, I'll read some of this stuff to you, but you just go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What does it mean? I'm not sure. But when you look at the very beginnings, they got some stuff right. I mean, you can disagree with, what they've said and over the years, who belongs, who doesn't belong. But all the early entrants people, they seem to belong there without a doubt. So I'm going to go to you can Google it and say the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the first entry people in there. Okay, who's on there? Well, you're going to find Elvis. Could Elvis sing in tune and in time? You bet he could. Chuck Berry. How about Chuck Berry? First guy up there? Could he play that guitar? Yes, he could. Could he write clever lyrics? Yes. Did he sing in tune? Did he sing in time? Yes, he did. If you went right down the line, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, Sam Cooke, Ray Charles, all these people, they were not people who couldn't play their instruments and sing in tune. They passed the bar in flying colors. Now, were they doing the music of the day like Rosemary Clooney and Perry Como and Frank Sinatra of the 50s? No, they were not. They were not playing that. Could they have sat in on some big band sessions, with some of the great swing bands? Probably not. But the music they invented and they chose to play was done professionally. Absolutely. And I can't imagine any of these guys looking at the English punk bands or the Ramones or any of them or the Stooges and saying to myself, Jesus, how did it evolve into that? When did it become okay just not to have real skills, musical skills? Well, a lot of these musicians in punk bands said, well, I don't feel I need that. Well, that's just, one of the Ramones once said that, that he felt that you didn't have to have those kind of skills. Well, you know what that's an excuse for? Not taking the time to develop them. That's what I think it is, more than anything else. I mean, if you do something different, that's great. But like I said, musical skills count. And you look at the Rock and Roll, the first class of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Just take a look and see who's on that list, for goodness sakes. You know what I mean? I named a whole bunch of them. Let's see if I can name some more. Well, I did say all those people. Who else is on here? They got, the Everly Brothers. Sure, Little Richard. James Brown. James Brown he played in time, he played in tune, he sang in tune. Funky, man, funky. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Aretha Franklin. All these people had great musical skills in their own rights. Were they doing something different? They were. But they were doing something musical. So that's my rant today, which is starting to sound like, I like The Clash. I found something I could like. I go back and I listen to God Save the Queen. The thing that kind of started it all with the Sex Pistols and Johnny Rotten and spitting on the crowd and diving in the audience. And like I said, a lot of these singers and punk bands didn't have to spend a lot of money on shirts, because they didn't wear any, so you could see their nipple piercings or their tattoos or whatever, and they could dive in. Those are just gimmicks. To me, when you do that, that's the equivalent of the 70s rock bands, wearing tight satin pants and 3-inch heeled shoes, the platform shoes. That's what it comes back to, is what is being done musically. Let's hear it. And what are the songs, the punk songs? Well, if you want to disagree with me, write in. If you really dug punk music and you thought it had a lasting quality, fine by me. I just don't see it. Now, the second generation punk bands, like Green Day, for instance, they honed their skills. Green Day's, they play great together. Great drummer, great bass player, great guitar player. Billy Joel sings in tune, cool songs. They always remind me of like the My Generation, that period of The Who. They listen to those records a lot. And you know what? The Who, those early albums, they had that quality, that thrashing kind of, I'm out of control, I'm doing my thing. But man, John Entwistle, Keith Moon, Pete Townsend, Roger Daltrey, players and singers and songwriters, awful good. So here I am, kind of once again contradicting myself, but I did find things I like. God Save the Queen gives me a chuckle, all right? And The Clash, the 3 songs I mentioned by The Clash, I like them. Here's one last little tidbit. All these bands were railing against the man. Oh, we're going to rail against the man. Oh, the establishment. Oh, the man. It makes me laugh. The first thing you do as a recording artist is you sign a contract that decides how much money they're going to pay you per unit sold, whether it's a cassette, a CD, a record album. So these early people, Chuck Berry, James Brown, Ray Charles, Elvis, Little Richard, all those people, they weren't railing against the man. They wanted to be the man. That's what they wanted. Because what did they do? They ran out and bought Cadillacs. Chuck Berry wanted to get himself a Cadillac. Why not? Oh, sure. Elvis, how many Cadillacs did he keep? They weren't railing against the man. They were just playing a new music. They wanted to be the man. They wanted to control their destiny. Okay, they weren't railing against some fake man from some fake establishment. And these punk bands, same thing. Are the Ramones letting their music be used in commercials? Well, that's the man. That's it. Okay, I think I'm done ranting and rolling here. Today is the Rant and Roll by Dennis DeYoung. I found some stuff I like in punk music. There, I've said it. Now, I hope you people have enjoyed this, and if you have not, please do me a favor and write in and say, Dennis, shut up. No, I'm kidding. Dennis, I love you, because why do we do this other than that? I'm Dennis DeYoung, and I hope the universe is moving in your direction.
Enlightening? Perhaps. Entertaining? Always. Thanks for listening to the podcast, Come Sail Away with Dennis DeYoung. Get the next new episode Friday morning at 7 a.m. on this website.